Good evening, everyone. It's an absolute privilege to welcome you all to this conversation on designing future-ready GCCs that scale and innovate. For many years, GCCs in India were defined by a simple equation, which was cost arbitrage on one side and abundant talent pool that was available. But today, that equation is changing irreversibly. GCCs are no longer the back office. They are more the extended HQs of their mothership. They are shaping products, they are driving innovation, and they are also creating enterprise-wide value. And of course, all of this is happening at the backdrop of what I call as the global AI overdose. And if you have not been using the word AI transformation paradigm shift in the last 2 years, I'm sure you all have been made to feel professionally guilty at some point of time. So while we often talk about how GCCs are being reshaped by the shift, the reality is the change is also happening for all of us. When I say all of us, it also includes IT services companies. So the company that I come from, which is Product, a lot of my customers are now moving away from the old services model, which is the classic, tell me how many Java developers you have and I will give you the headcount. So that model is actually retiring, and rightfully so. So today I am being questioned as to what is the outcome that you're delivering, what is the value that you're delivering. And much like GCCs, IT services is also pivoting towards that model. So while we are moving towards becoming a value partner powered by AI, powered by IP, powered by problem-first thinking, that journey also resonates very well with what is happening in India with GCCs. So as leaders on this stage who are running some of the most admired GCCs in India, I am very thrilled and honored to be learning from you, and I'm just going to be a learner here, a student, to know some of the practical experiences on how you scale, how you innovate, and take some of those ideas as my own and implement it in my firm. So thank you for being here. Thank you, audience, for being here. I'll start with Sujit. Sujit, value creation in a GCC is fundamentally different from cost optimization. So in your view, what does value creation truly mean in the GCC context today? And what signals show that a GCC has crossed that threshold?
Thanks for the question. So quickly introduction from my side. I'm Sujit, and I'm heading Raksool India Development Center in Bangalore. It is a B2B commerce company with a variety of offerings into small and medium enterprise businesses. So coming to your question, I think traditionally GCCs were built for cost optimization, do the same things but cheaper. But I think that is changing, and of course, value creation to me means that GCCs are no longer a cost arbitrage unit, as Pancham, my friend, was mentioning in the keynote session today. But they are actually moving towards becoming capability engines for our enterprise. So I think three things that will basically highlight to understand when we are moving to the journey of becoming a cost, not cost arbitrage, but actually, capability engines for our enterprise. One, of course, we are not looking at cost arbitrage at all, but looking at how we can contribute utilizing AI-driven, technologies in the market now. And the second one, when we are moving from cost arbitrage or cost-related reasonings to AI capability-driven centers. So I think one is you're looking at product ownership, end-to-end product ownership completely from doing tasks-based activities to actually going and driving business outcomes for the enterprises. And building trust and transparent governance in the GCC units will also help us get there together. So I think for me, the value creation happens when the GCCs move towards becoming indispensable for their enterprise organizations.
Thank you. Thanks, Sujit. So Vishal, continuing on that thought, where GCCs are moving towards indispensable units to their mothership. So if they have to demonstrate that they are value creators and not cost centers, what kind of metrics and KPIs should they track that unmistakably signal their shift, especially from a global HQ perspective?
Yeah, Venkat, great question. If you can't measure it, you can't grow further. few indicators and few KPIs, at least at Omnicom Global Solutions, we keep very close to our heart as we grow. And we've been in this industry in India for last, this is our 14th year running. Part of Omnicom's integrated solutions engine is what we call ourselves. From an indicator standpoint, usually we notice these initiatives trigger from a bottom line mindset. Cost arbitrage is what is usually it is called. An initiative driven by the CFO's desk. And the indicator for us to drive whether we are heading in the value-driven mindset is when that focus conversion shifts from a CFO desk to a CEO desk. Because now we can start talking about the top-line impact that the GCC can bring for our global organization. For us, this is not just helping our agencies within Omnicom and the practice areas to win new clients, but also retain existing clients. The value proposition and the capabilities that we build, the offer that we present and the services that we deliver to our practice areas, are they being taken to the pitches? Are they being leveraged by our agencies to retain and to win new clients? We call, at OGS, we call that growth perspective as part of our balanced scorecard approach. We measure growth metrics in that. Some of them, for example, if it helps, we track how many global accounts that OGS is a part of, where we are delivering end client deliverables and outcomes from India. We monitor that very, very closely. That is something that we see how it impacts the top line of the global. Second, at a regional level, we see how the capability expands, also grows in. So not only growing in depth in one, but also growing in width across multiple capabilities that we have, depending on the mandate that the agency has won from the client. Could be an advertising or a creative mandate, could be an end-to-end media mandate, could be all of it. So we track that very, very closely, how these capabilities are expanding in width or are going in depth in terms of how they leverage us, not from the lower funnel work perspective, but also going up the value chain and driving greater value all the way to interacting with the clients from India and delivering outcome. So these are some of the metrics and KPIs that we track very, very closely, and we call it growth perspective. That helps.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks, Vishal. Actually, that's a very interesting view. So we are seeing GCCs move from cost optimization or cost takeout centers to cost neutral centers to what you're now saying as revenue producing or revenue generating centers. So that's a great perspective. Ram, so once a GCC starts moving into value creation territory, scaling becomes the next frontier to conquer, right? So from your experience, what operating model choices separates GCCs that scale smoothly and to those that struggle? So are there any tips that you have for us?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thanks for the question. And the company I belong to is in the money flow, as we call it. So it's money at rest, which is our core banking systems, money in motion, which is payments, and money at work, which is capital markets areas. Now, as a public company, the market measures us, of course, on a number of factors. There are two major factors that come in, right? One is revenue growth, the other is margins. And typically, large GCCs play a role in both of them. And I think, as was mentioned earlier, you have a responsibility on revenue growth, obviously, but you also have on margins. And that's where the cost equation comes in. So while a lot of discussion happens around GCCs, are you cost, are you built for what? At the end of the day, you cannot forget the cost advantage that you may have. So having said that, in my opinion, I think there are four major areas that most GCCs operate with. One is the portfolio of work. And I call it a portfolio only because it's probably got a mix of things, especially for older GCCs. You have some parts of the portfolio which are growth, some parts of the portfolio which are delivering today's revenue, but with moderate amount of investment that's going in. And there's going to be things which are cash cows, right? You're still managing them for your customers and still delivering revenue today. So the portfolio of work really will, is kind of the first thing everything else keys off of. And how you tune that portfolio of work is very much dependent on the company strategies and everything else. And if you're part of a core, for me, the measurement is, are you having an impact at the company level or not? I mean, business units will be there, functional units will be there, all the stuff will exist, and they have to worry about their own operations. But as a GCC leader, my focus is, are we kind of making an impact at the company top line? So that's one. Second thing linked to that, linked to the portfolio of work is your talent strategy. Because a lot of times you hear this dialogue of you want to go out and hire the best people in the market, but what does best mean? It's, to me, it's much more of appropriate talent that you want to have for in alignment with the portfolio of work. So that's the second area where you need to start tuning it. And it's not static, right? Your portfolio is going to shift, which means your talent strategy needs to be aligned with it and flexible enough and adaptable enough and resilient enough that it doesn't break down, the first time there is some kind of perturbation in the system. The third piece from that is, given the India advantage, if I look at it from the ecosystem perspective, there aren't too many ecosystems in the world which has what we have. There aren't too many places where you can drive around in a city and meet most of your global customers. It doesn't matter who you are. You probably have other GCCs here from your global customers. How much linkage we have with them is a different discussion. I think that's an opportunity for all of us to think about. Can we build those partnerships much better, much stronger? Because if everybody is shifting to value, which means the portfolio work and the kind of work that these GCCs are doing for your global customers, along with your global customers, there are opportunities to partner. That's one side to it. The other side to it is the learning that comes from the India market. In my previous company, our CEO used to say there is scale and there's India scale. So an India scale has two parts to it. Especially if you have a business in India and you're a technology company, it becomes a challenge. Because Indian customers, the expectations are sky high, and they want it done like yesterday. And the customers also don't have that much maturity. So if you're trying to deploy at scale into the Indian market, a lot of times you go from the deal signing to production in probably a very short period of time. There is no staging, there is no pre-prod, there is no production. You go directly to production, right? And then you figure out if it's working or not. So it hardens you, it builds resilience in your system, and etc. And then, of course, you have the startup ecosystem, and etc., and the other pieces around it. So the ecosystem advantage is another piece. That's something that everybody needs to look at to see how can they tune it for themselves, right? What can they get out of it? And then the fourth piece is governance and compliance. If we are a regulated entity, many other regulated entities, and even if you're not a regulated entity, just making sure that you're, conforming to things and keeping an eye on how things are changing and adapting to it is one part. The other one on the more positive side is employee value proposition. Your policies, how you tune it for your market, how do you actually make it a great place to work, right? Many companies go through a measurement process of defining great place to work. So I think the governance and compliance of how you manage your site becomes very critical. And if you do all of these four well, relatively well, you'll have a good GCC, right?
Thank you. Thanks, Ram. In fact, a couple of things that really resonates with me is on the talent strategy and also the fact that sometimes production environment becomes our development environment also, right? So, Mohit, for you, right? One trend I'm seeing with the enterprises, at least I work with from a services provider perspective, is how the definition of success itself has evolved over a period of time. So, for companies like me, success is no longer measured as a project delivery done, but rather, outcome-based, KPI-driven, and some of my deals are also structured around shared impact and IP co-creation, right? So my question is, from a Fortune 500 enterprise perspective that you run, what does success look like to you when it comes to the evolution of GCCs? And what do global stakeholders expect GCCs to do differently today when compared to a few years ago?
Sure. Firstly, thank you for having me, and thanks for the question. Just a quick introduction. Bristol Myers Squibb is a 170-year-old company. It's a biopharma company across, delivering for our patients across 5 major therapeutic areas, which is cancer, immunology, cardiovascular, so on and so forth. So there are two parts to the question is, if you really look at what the modern GCCs are looking for, of course, everything all the panelists talked about is it always starts with some kind of a business case, right? There's always some kind of a cost arbitrage play to it. But I would say that's really become a very small percentage right now. A lot of the folks are now talking about innovation. A lot of the folks are talking about business outcomes. A lot of the folks are talking about get me the cross-functional collaboration, right? So no longer the conversations are, yeah, you can do this well for us. You can do it at a cost play, which is whatever, 2-3x lower. I think those conversations are no longer there, right? There is a business case, but the business case is just purely for being there, right? So if you go back to what is the value that you're looking for, I think fundamentally a GCC, every company has a DNA, right? And a GCC has to, have the similar DNA of the company. You can't be too far away. But the advantage that you have coming in late is you don't have to go with the same muscle memory that exists in the company. So as these GCCs are coming up, the common question that always comes is, guys, we are looking for, us to be more cross-functional collaboration, because that's sometimes not easy depending on where you are and how distributed you are, whereas the GCCs are new under one roof, you're setting up multiple functions, so on and so forth. The second is the innovation breakthrough that can happen here, right? Because we're coming in a bit late. I know you talked about AI, you talked about technology. That advantage of people coming from different industries and different backgrounds and seeing it very differently is what you can harness only in the first 6 to 12 months. After that, you kind of start losing it, right? So I think how you tap into that is very important. If you ask me today, the KPIs for any modern GCC is, in my view, there should not be any GCC-specific KPI at all. It should just be a replica of your business or functional KPI. It has to be a replica of what business outcomes you're trying to drive for the business. And I think that's really the fundamental shift that has happened, right? So to summarize it, I think I would break it into skill, and I would break it into scale, and I would break it into innovation. The last part I'll touch upon is, at the end of the day, the fundamental thing that we are trying to do is people, process, tech. That is not going away. I'm sure you heard it 30 years ago, and you're going to hear it 30 years from now. But we have to do it in that order. Because what happens is, if you do it in the reverse order, where you apply tech to a badly designed process for a organization that is not energized and motivated, it will never work. So you have to first transform at the people level, the mindset, the shifting, the training, so on, and the skilling. Then you have to go back and say, guys, these processes were written 20 years ago. I have to redesign it. I have to reimagine it. I have to start from scratch. How would it look? Then comes the tech part, where you say, OK, now I've got the best tech, and I can apply it the best way for the most efficient process. Then the compounding effects of that is multifold. I think that's what everybody aspiring for.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks, Mohit. In fact, a few people, just before this panel were also discussing about how this name GCC will slowly evolve to something called as, global technology centers, and then eventually into global value centers. So I'm sure we will come up with more and more acronyms in the future. Sujit, back to you. You mentioned earlier the ways GCCs demonstrate value, right? So how is AI accelerating the shift? And can you give me one or two examples how, in a very practical way, AI is helping you reposition GCC from just being a support unit into a strategic innovation engine?
Sure. I think clearly AI is defining and changing the landscape of product and engineering space, and is a rapid accelerator of both speed and quality when it comes to value creation. So when the teams start becoming AI native, I think they just not only be the support arm of the GCC organizations, but also become core capability engines for the enterprise. So I think two practical examples that I can think of is, one is being AI-driven engineering, where in my opinion, AI native is nothing but someone who can actually adopt to the different AI solutions that are already available in the market instead of reinventing the wheel, but utilizing that in enterprise applications and see how we can drive the value from there. So that is one, becoming AI-driven engineering organization. And the other one is redefining the workflows using AI. So it could be using Cursor or Devin AI to basically code very quickly using AI solutions that are there, and accelerate the time to market. So I think these two are the reasons for me. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks, Sujit. So before I get into the next question, Vishal. So you spoke about getting AI native people, and Ram spoke about talent strategy. Mohit spoke about transforming people first before technology and processes, etc. So the topic of talent is very, very close to my heart, because I also run talent strategy at Product. So earlier we used to speak about I-shaped employees, T-shaped employees, pie-shaped employees, comb-shaped employees, etc. So today we are talking about cross-skilled, multi-skilled employees, right? And this half-life of knowledge in technology is also coming down from earlier 10 years to 5 years to 3 years now. What's also very interesting is 3 days back, Analytics India magazine, AIM, had an article about a new role called forward deployed engineers, right? So 3 years back, we wouldn't have heard that role name. 5 years back, we wouldn't have heard somebody called a vector DB specialist or an embedding specialist or a prompt engineer. So my question to you, Vishal, is, reshaping of talent models everywhere, especially in this AI world. And as someone who works very deeply with global creative and tech talent, how do you see AI changing the talent landscape for GCCs?
Listen, first of all, everything that we are doing at the core, at the center, are our talent pool, our employees, because all our strategies, our workflows, our investments in technology, everything needs eventually lands on the desk of an employee who needs to really bring the great value that we expect, and that is very, very core to us at the heart. So two things for us specifically as we focus in this new and the future evolved era. As part of Omnicom, and I'm sure all of us as part of our global kind of group, we get access to the latest technology platforms, all the necessary kind of assessment is being done. Mostly it's kind of driven by global. We also take part in that. So that's where I feel like we are very privileged from that standpoint. We get access to all of these. The important question for us as leaders is how do we make sure all of that is with our employees effectively being used in the most prominent way, where the work product that comes out of our talent is what speaks to what we are trying to deliver for the future. This is where the way we kind of approach it is calling it as talent plus. Plus is where all of these efforts come to play. We have seen AI evolving what a talent can bring to the table. For example, when we talk about creative, when earlier creative was most seen as someone who is coming up with new design or best design ideas, today it has now become us bring up the ideas but quickly bring it to production as well. We're calling it creative technologists. So the blend of technology into creative is what we are seeing as something evolving. Same in the world of media. Media, the planning, the whole end-to-end media planning and execution process has now a great infusion of technology into it. The greater kind of evolution for us is how do we integrate all of it together, right? For us as Omnicom, given we are in marketing and sales domain, making sure the entire marketing workflow comes out as an integrated work product, not as a siloed media practitioner, creative practitioner, data practitioner, but everyone gets access to, through the technology and the platform and the tools, gets to leverage all of these infusing into the work product and things beyond what their job description was telling them a year back. So that's where we see kind of the role or the jobs of people evolving. The second important aspect is, I feel like it's on us to be able to kill this sense of distraction within our employees, that AI is here to take anything away from them. And I think that's where we do a lot of sessions with our employees, where we drive this sense of expanding job roles, not really delimiting or taking anything away from that. I think when that kind of cloud surrounds them, their effort towards exploring Gen AI and all the technology gets limited, and what we have feel. So it's very important that we kind of make effort in taking that cloud away, giving them the best tech and platforms, and helping them see the evolution that we are anyways expecting as an industry to do.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Vishal. In fact, creative technologists is a new term that I'm hearing. It's almost like left and right brain are coming together very seamlessly. Ram, when we talk about AI at scale, operating models, which you anyway touched upon a little bit, what changes do GCCs need to make in governance, architecture, as well as cross-functional collaboration to truly embed AI into the fabric of the enterprise?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things. One is a lot of the focus, I think the earlier colleagues here talked about this. A lot of initial focus on AI was around efficiency. I'm not saying efficiency is not important. It probably is. But I think the real value for something like artificial intelligence, beyond the technology element of it, will come from workflow changes in the context of the customer. And in that sense, really kind of reframing workflows, rather than, the workflow in an automation sense was really, it was still very much mimicking the structure of an organization where it went from one, the old days would have been somebody carrying a file to another table, it went through automation, right? But I think if you fundamentally think about workflow reimagination, if you may, the centers, the large centers, or at least medium-sized centers in what we call GCCs, have an advantage which I don't know if we are tapping into yet. And the advantage is you have front office, back office, mid office, a lot of various types of teams which are situated in a center, in a GCC. Just because it grown, especially the older ones, right? Because they grew over a period of time, and everybody wanted a cost advantage in every function of the company, so they started growing teams in these locations. If you dissolve boundaries across the various silos that exist within any organization, that's when some of the creativity on the workflow reimagination can potentially come from. So I think from a GCC perspective, that's one of the big opportunities is how do you then create an environment? And that, to Mohit's point earlier, it starts with change of mindset. You need to be able to help people shift, and I think the point made around remove the fear element that comes with some of these technologies that says, hey, your job's going to go away. I mean, because that seems to be a zero-sum game conversation all the time about jobs getting taken away and so on and so forth. Will jobs change? Yes. And I think the opportunity is in creation of new jobs rather than just erosion of existing workflows, right? Jobs that exist. So I think, to me, I think for this to really take hold, for the company, the GCCs have a big role to play. Because that is the only other place in the company, even sometimes the headquarters doesn't have all the functions present in it. So which means that these centers have to take advantage of the fact that they're able to get somebody from finance, marketing, HR, and engineering and functional areas all in the same room to have a conversation.
Right.
How do we take advantage of that is important, because I think the game of AI is still very, very early. And my other definition of AI is aligned and inclusive. If you're aligned and inclusive, then hopefully AI, beyond the technologies, will start to take hold in a material way. It'll probably accelerate over time. I think we are all in the early stages of this, of the evolution of this. And that's why I think, to me, if you think about, the future of GCCs, or if you play this out 5 to 10 years, the cost element goes away because, a human being is still more expensive than probably an agent, right? A digital agent. So that advantage will potentially start to reduce, and maybe we should, actively reduce that advantage over time from the GCC perspective. The other is large availability of talent pools, which is why a lot of people came here. That may not be a factor anymore. Then the question is, how do you turn this around? And I think that's, to me, is these workflow reimagination can be the way you would actually add value in the future.
Thank you. Thanks, Ram. I mean, you gave a new abbreviation for AI, aligned and inquisitive, so thanks for that. Mohit, in your industry, which is regulated and science-led enterprise, AI has an immense potential to do a lot of innovation, right? But again, you have to balance innovation with responsible AI. So what is the advice that you would give to other GCCs who are attempting to balance the best of the both worlds, which is responsible AI, as well as being extremely fast when it comes to innovation?
I'll try this one more time. Thank you. So fundamentally, nothing is different, to be honest. Before this, I was at Bank of America for 18 years. It's also a regulated industry, banking, and then pharma. So it's over 2 decades of working for regulated industries. I look at those as just requirements that you get, and you have to work around the requirements. Like how you get requirements from your stakeholders is the same thing that you have to think from a compliance perspective. And if you have that innovative thinking and mindset, you will find, meeting that requirement, still delivering to it is what you have to cater to. So I would say fundamentally it's no different. I think sometimes as people, our change behaviors protects us from going aggressive on innovation by using regulation as as a front stage, saying, oh, we are in a regulated and we can't be very innovative. In my view, you can be innovative across multiple industries. It's no different. It's just you have to cater to that requirement and then bring that thinking mindset. So that's what it is.
Thank you. Thanks, Mohit. I know that was a time check. But very quickly, I also have heard that, don't think of governance and responsible as, brakes. So if I take the car analogy, which is accelerator, brake, and clutch, while AI can be your accelerator and governance and responsible AI could be thought of as brakes and people as your clutch to shift gears, if you think about it, the one thing that is actually helping you move faster is not the accelerator, but the brakes. Because brakes gives you the confidence that you can really accelerate at whatever speed you want, and there is some checks and balances to ensure that you don't meet with an accident. So that was something that I heard in a previous panel. So I think we have covered some really good insights today.